Welcome to the Foundation for the Study of Cycles. My name is Lars von Thienen, and once a week we meet here to discuss cycles. The episode today will be about the cycles application and how to use the cycles application, as there are a lot of new members on the foundation, a lot of questions rushing in. So I think as we should not focus too much on the current markets right now, we should pay attention to our application, and I will give you a basic overview how the application works. So if you're a new member, this is a good chance for you to review how to work with the cycle analyzer. If you're also familiar already with the application, I think you in most cases will know what I'm talking about today. The reason for this is for sure, and we will start with a minute of silence, as we need to support and help, and each of us needs to stand up, speak up. We need to stop war on this planet here. We need to declare our solidarity to the Ukrainian people at these times. And please, everyone, think about how can you help to stop this war. I think now it's about us. It's about each of us to think about we need to stand up and we need to speak up. So that's it. So therefore, let's start with 1 minute of silence. Okay. So, cycles application today, basic walkthrough. Let's jump over to the application. So I will give you really basic information, nothing new. So the application is a cloud-based cycle analyzer application. We will use this here every week, every Monday. I will use the same tools you can use as a member of the foundation to do your own cycle analysis. So, say it in other words, we eat our own dog food and stay to it and stick to it and use it once a week here to show you some live analysis. So if you want to repeat what you see here on this channel once a month and once a week on Monday, you can do so on your own by just becoming a member. So what you see here is the landing page for the application, which gives you access to the right here on this URL to the web page. It's a cloud-based application, so it's accessible from every device, being it a computer, a Macintosh, a Windows, or even a smartphone or a tablet. So you can quickly do your cycle analysis. Second, the cycles application allows to directly access daily market data, which we provide access to third-party data feeds. For example, you can use the symbol ID from the Yahoo Finance site to directly do some cycle analysis on these data sets without bringing your own data. So a very easy step to start with cycle analysis, and you might think about where do I get the data from? You can just look up the ID you are interested in for your cycle analysis while moving to Yahoo Finance, check the ID, and then use it here as an input. So I will show you, for example, you switch to Yahoo Finance to search for whatever you are interested in, like oil, and then you will find the ID for this data set here shown on the Yahoo Finance page. So for example, the crude oil futures contract, continuous futures contract, or not continuous, it's the April 2022 contract, has the ID which is shown here in brackets. So the ID for this data set is CL equals F. Yeah? And you use this application or this shorter information now to use this as an input now when it comes to the Cycles application. So you will then switch over to our Cycle Scanner, which is the main application of our tool set. Then you use the data feed ID here in the upper right corner to enter the ID you just looked up at the Yahoo Finance site, and add the abbreviation JFA to indicate this is the this is the data feed you are interested in. So this is what you just need to add. Once done, just click the scan button and the data set will show up in your cycle analyzer. And that's the basic usage, or to get started with more or less everything which is available on Yahoo Finance can be charted directly here in the cycle analyzer, just as a quick start, yeah, to get you started. And what we see here is the oil futures contract with the latest data up to today. And you can do this with almost every ID, every data set which is available to you on Yahoo Finance. You can just chart it the way I just explained here. So that's the first step, how to get some data visible in the cycle analyzer application. The second information is now, as the Cycle Scanner is the main tool set we provide to you, is you need now to understand how the analyzer works. And therefore, just some basics here today. It's about digital signal processing. So what the application will do now is it will take the data set you have just loaded into the application. It will do a detrending of this data. So it will disable all existing trends. Yeah, you don't want to analyze trend with cycles. So therefore it will do a special detrending function. And then it will apply a special feature of the Fourier analysis or Fourier spectrum analysis. So it will convert everything into the frequency domain and then do some transforms based on the Fourier application, some special versions, so not the simple versions, and then get back to you with the so-called spectrum, which is the result of the Fourier analysis. And the spectrum is shown at the bottom of this page here first. So that's the output of the basic cycle analysis. And what you see here on the x-axis is a count from 0 up to 400. And these numbers represent the cycle length. So, and the cycle length is related to the time frame you have used as input. So as we deal here with daily data, each number, so here the 100 would represent a cycle with a length of 100. And on the y-axis, on this axis here, is the amplitude of the cycle length from the x-axis. So the digital signal processing algorithm will check each possible length, which is shown on the x-axis, and will check if the analyzer can find a cycle at the given length. And the amplitude reading, so the reading on the y-axis, will tell you if a cycle has been detected. So if we see a large amplitude, so which is shown here at this peak, for example, means that we can assume that at the length of the x-axis here, which is exactly 159, has a peak in the spectrum, which means that there is a cycle found with a length of 159 days in this data period. And this is the basic view how the spectrum looks like. So what you will do with this kind of spectrum is that you're looking for the peaks, the peaks in this spectrum, because the peaks are the position or the points where cycles have been detected by the algorithm. So you're just plotting the spectrum from a visual point of view, being able just to digest where are the peaks in the spectrum. For sure, this is also shown in a table-like view so that you don't need to have a full visual check of the spectrum, but that's just the underlying methodology, which is what is the cycle analyzer about. So first, you're looking for the peaks in the spectrum. This is what the analyzer will do. Second, what will then happen is we will give some cross-validation to these peaks in the spectrum. So the cross-validation, for example, one topic is we apply statistical significance tests to these cycles to see if these, in simple terms, if it's a valid cycle from the point of statistical analysis. So, and this is what the Bartle score is about. So for each peak which has been detected, we derive a Bartle's value. And the Bartle's value is an indication of how significant this cycle is from a different science perspective without going into the details of the Bartle's test. And this is just visualized in the color coding, which you see on the right of this spectrum here. So this is the Bartle's value. This is not the scientific reading of the Bartle's value, because from a scientific point of view, you will look for low Bartle's value, but I've turned this into a more readable or visual point of view. So the higher the Bartle's score is shown here, which is close to 100, which is an indication we have high significance, that there is also statistical verification of this cycle. And there's an offset then declared if we are above 70, so we just color it green. So there's a high statistical significance also shown from the Bartle's value. Blue, somewhere in between, and red just shows us that we don't have significance for this cycle, even though it has been detected from the digital signal processing. So that's the second kind of measure you should always take into account. So instead of just looking at the peaks, you're looking for the peaks which are green triangle on top of it, which for example is this one and this one here, because there we have a good Bartle's value. So another confirmation that we have really repeating cycles in this data set. In simple terms, you can read the Bartle's value for that there have been more than one or two repetitions of this cycle, because sometimes a cycle might just occur in the data set and then fade out, or from a historical point of view has just been present there one or two times, but it's not a regular cycle in the overall data set. And you want to look for regular data set, regular cycles, which are not random caused. And this gives you some confidence with the Bartle's test. So that's the second important thing you will look for. And the third important thing is the strength of the triangle here. So you should look out for the relation between the amplitude and the cycle length, because in other words, you can have a large amplitude on a very large cycle, but this will then amount or result in a very small step per day on the absolute price movements. So you can also have smaller amplitudes from an absolute point of view for smaller cycles, which you just take the relative change per day, which might be higher from larger cycles. So the strength information gives you an additional measurement and of how much impacts this cycle, the amplitude, per day, or per bar, per data point you move forward. How much impact has this cycle on the price movement if we deal with price information here? So there you can compare different cycles, even though that smaller length cycles will have smaller amplitudes. That's by nature. But however, you can then use the relative comparison. So divide the length by amplitude to get a relative score, how much even shorter term cycles can impact price movements, or even larger amplitudes on longer cycles have a lower strength score in relation to how they impact the absolute price change per day. So that's the third figure, and it's from a visual point of view, it's shown here by the size of these triangles. So these are the basic things you will look out. And normally you will start with the so-called dominant cycle. The most dominant cycle start from the right end of the spectrum. So start with the longest cycles first, which have the highest peaks, which are clearly visible in the spectrum. In this case, it would be the cycle with a length of 159 days. We're dealing with daily data here. So that's the starting point for any cycle analysis. Start from the right end of the spectrum, so the longest cycles. Choose the first peak you can see in the spectrum, which really separates from the other peaks. And the second you could use is then the longer one here with a slightly smaller amplitude with 219. So that's the way how you detect cycles then from the spectrum, from the digital signal processing. Now the next step is you want to plot these cycles on your data series. Therefore, you scroll up on the screen. On the right hand side now, you see the list of cycles in a table format. And the table format, it's just the same what I explained in the spectrum. So the peaks in the spectrum, the first one is 219, 34. 219 is this one here, and then 34. You could sort it by length. Let's sort it by length first. So you have 219, 159, 124. 219, 159, 124. So the peaks, which is the first way you look at this spectrum, are just shown in a table-like version. So if you just want to skip the procedure on visually detecting the peaks, the table right shows you the peaks at hand here. So that's just a different way to output the spectrum here. So that's the length information here. And as I said, are the ones, and you can sort them here by strength, by Bartle score, or by amplitude. Just the data sets I just explained here. So if we go by length, I said you the most important one is the dominant cycle, which I identified here in the spectrum with a length of 159. I think from a visual perspective, it's easy to see. It's also shown here as the second one listed here. So we will select this one. It has more or less also very high strength score, good Bartle score, and a very high amplitude. So that's always the starting point for your analysis. And now this cycle is plotted as an overlay on the chart. As the second cycle, I picked the one with 219, and I explained you why to pick these two ones here. And now you do a composite projection. A composite projection is that these two cycles are added up on each other and build then a composite. So it's taking the cycle with 159 days and it's taking the cycle with 219 days. It's adding these two cycles on top of each other and plotting them just as an overlay on the price chart here in this case. So, and the current data point is then marked by this short symbol here. So then you have a forecast at the right-hand side from this projection, and you see the overlay on the left-hand side of this forecast on the historical data, which was used for the analysis. So that's how you build your forecast. The thing which is not shown, but which is for sure maybe even more important for the forecast is the so-called phase of each cycle here in this analysis. So if I just use the one cycle with a length of 159, so you can see a clear cycle plot here on the chart. You might question, how is it aligned with the low and the highs of these cycle here? So that's the so-called phase of the cycle. The phase tells or gives the information where the low or high needs to be anchored in the past. And the phase information is also detected by the digital signal processing automatically. And the phase information is also shown here with the color coding behind the cycle length number information here. So for example, a green indication tells you that this cycle is still in the upswing phase, which you can see here. We are still in the upswing phase, so therefore it's green. If I would switch to this cycle here, which is indicated with the red background coloring, you see that this cycle is now in this downswing phase. So this is what differentiates between the color coding, which shows you the phase information. If I switch to the long-term cycle, or the longest cycle with a length of 219, it's light green, which means it's currently in this topping area. So the topping window, you also need to pay closer attention to. So that's the phase information per cycle. And these are the main basic informations you need to do your cycle analysis and plot composites and do your forecast and your analysis. And maybe then to fine-tune your analysis, there's one important information in the lower left corner of this chart, which I just need to highlight here. These two arrows, one arrow to the left and one arrow to the right, which allows you to select a different time frame for the in-sample period of this data set. So at the starting point, once you load data, for example, using Yahoo Finance, it is always loading the last 3 years or 850 bars on your chart, which is quite a good amount to start the cycle analysis, which is shown here below. If you want to load more data on the chart, so you want to have more historical data in your data set, you can change or load more data in your chart with this button or with this arrow here to the left. Which this was the wrong screen. Which means that if you click here, it will then allow you to add more data. So a 3 years time frame, 5 years time frame, or if you just want to add another year of data, you just press the +1 year and you will see there's now additional data, which is shown here in light blue, added to this chart. And light blue means that the data is there, therefore it's visible, but it's not used by the digital signal processing. This way you can easily see what data has been used for the analysis, so for the spectrum and the cycle output, and which data is still there to change your period. So for example, now you can change the period you want to analyze, and therefore you first will click, if you want to change the starting point of your analysis, you click on the left arrow, and then you position the cursor somewhere on the time axis. So let's say we want to start the analysis on the low here in the year of 2017, which will then show you now it's anchored here on the left-hand side. And maybe we also want to change the endpoint of our analysis, not to today. So let's see here to somewhere in the low of December last year. So you see now these two indications here, which allow us now to update the analysis. So now we have changed the starting point and the end point. And to update the analysis, we need to click, this refresh button here. Once we click refresh, you see that the dark blue area is now exactly as we have aligned the data points. So the dark blue information has now been used for the cycle analysis period here. So you can also analyze different points in time to see how the cycles behaved in the past. So you can cross-validate how reliable the cycle analysis is, even without using the current data. It's a kind of walk-forward procedure. You can go through the data. Just in this example, there's one peak standing out with a length of 169 days. You could activate this in the cycle scanner here, which showed you this projection here at this point in time. So this way you can select any time frame from your data set and just check how the cycle analyzer or the cycles have been shown up at this point in time. And I think this is a key, because this is for cycle research. And every cycle analyst should have a clear understanding about past cycles in whatever data set you're using. So at least before we end today's session, it is about, you should get a clue on the historical evolvement of cycles in the data set you're interested in. Please never just load a data set, just make a static analysis with whatever application, and then trust whatever projection you have. You need to have a historical understanding of how cycles behaved in this data set, how valid cycle projection have been in this data set, because this differs from data set to data set. Not all data sets have a predictive value based on cycles, because there are also trends, fluctuations, complex cycles overlying each other, random events, which could make it very difficult from time to time to detect the real dominant cycle. But this is different from data set to data set. We can't make any general recommendation where cycle analysis works and where it not works. It really depends from data set to data set. Therefore, each analyst must review the historical behavior of cycles in your data set. And that's up to you to trust cycles or not to trust cycles. And as I said, this is different for each and every data set. Not only the data set, also the time frame you choose. So in this case, it was daily cycles. It can be different on weekly, monthly, or even intraday cycles. But that's the basic usage of the cycle analyzer. I think these are the key topics you need to do. Then another question often is, you want to bring in your own data set. So if you think it's not enough to just use the Yahoo data set, for sure there are different ways now to continue. So there's the so-called My Data Set, which allows you to upload your individual data set. So you can upload any data series to the cycle analyzer, regardless of the time frame. Minute data, hourly data, monthly series, sunspot cycles, geomagnetic data sets. So there now the scientific feature comes also in. The analyzer is not related to any special kind of data set. So here in the upload section, you press just the upload new button, which allows you then to upload your private data. If you want to get to know how the data needs to be formatted, please click on the eye icon here on the screen. It gives you an indication how the file format needs to look like. Often this is overlooked by some new members, and then their question shows up how the data needs to be formatted if I want to upload my own data. So this is the way to get the information how the data needs to look like. You can use Unix timestamp, you can use string data series, so it's able to read these kind of information, and then you pick your data, your file from your local computer, you can upload it, and then you can use the same procedure in the cycle scanner as I just showed you here. That's the second option to bring in your own data series. And the third option is you can directly upload data from third-party applications. So for example, you see here the upload key information, and the upload key allows you to create a so-called data upload key, which will then show up here as a simple key. And this key then allows you, and we provide the script here for you. So for example, we provide a general script for Motive Wave application. So if you use Motive Wave as your charting application, and I just named this application because there's a community version of Motive Wave, which is free. Yeah, so you can use Motive Wave. You connect your own data feeds to this community edition, being it your TradeStation account or DTN trade feed. So if you have already some data feeds running, you can use Motive Wave as a charting platform. You can even use your own charting platform. But for Motive Wave, we provide the free script. It's an open script, and you can just put the API key in, the upload key then in the application, and just with one click on the charting application, you push the data to the cycle analyzer, which will then show up as your own data sets here. So I think these are the 3 ways you get access to data. First is use the Yahoo Finance site to find the ID for daily and weekly cycles. Second is you can upload any data set from your computer if you have it locally. Third, we allow you with the upload key to connect your charting application with your own data feed with just pushing a 1-button script, and then you have the same data which you see on your charting application then in the cycle scanner. So that's the most easy way to get the data in the application. And then when you have done your analysis, you want to save your current analysis, and then in a week, in 2 weeks, or in a month, you want to review how your cycle analysis has become. So therefore, if you have done your analysis in the cycle scanner, which we just did on oil here, so you have your forecast here, then you want to save it. There are these buttons here in the upper corner of the application, which then allow you to perform some further actions. So for example, the simple way is to save this analysis as a workbook. If you press this button, this analysis will just be saved in the cloud with a local click, and you can always reload this data set here. So you will get a link. You can also publish this as an idea, but I think the most valid case is that you want to reload your workbook. So therefore on the left-hand side, you can also go to My Workbooks, and then you will find sorted by ID your workbooks you have saved. So for example, this is the workbook we just did on the oil futures. And then you can reopen this workbook by just clicking at the workbook button, and you will get directly to the analysis where you have left this analysis with the selected cycles, the composite. And if new data is in, you will see updated price information for sure, but just in light blue. As I said, it will then load the new price, so you can also then see how good the forecast or the composite forecast you did was, and how good or bad the reprice data performed after your analysis. You just need to reload your workbook, and you will then also see the updated price information if there is any available. So that's the easy way then to save your workbook, to reload your workbooks. And last but not least, there's also a simple way from the cycle analyzer application to access all the data. In the right upper hand, you see the so-called hamburger menu. And if you press the hamburger menu, you have direct access to your data sets, which is the uploaded data. Yeah, you did upload to streams. Streams would be if you use the data uploader functions to upload your data in the applications to the markets. So this is, for example, where you use the Yahoo indices for your market analysis, or your saved workbooks. And just by clicking these lines here from the chart, you can directly jump to in this case, the workbook you have saved in the past. And we will also find the analysis from today. I can just click on this line item here, and you see on the left-hand side that it automatically opens this analysis in the cycle scanner. So that's the most easiest way to browse your data sets. And if you have your data set, you can just click the hamburger menu to move it off. So that's the basic procedure, how the cycle application works. And I hope this gives you an idea how to use the cycles application for cycle analysis. And that's what we are doing here each week on Monday, 6 o'clock Central European time, at least my local time here in Germany. And we will do here in normal circumstances, we will analyze real current data set. And just to make a short point, all analysis we did in the past, so we projected the high already in December, January. We warned about the major high in the global markets. I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, I told you that the oil cycle is still in an upswing before the conflict and the invasion happened. I analyzed the oil cycle, which on the weekly and daily showed that we are still upwards. So all analysis is still valid. We did here on the channel. There's no current update on these cycles here, but I think it's just time to give you a basic update on the cycles application in case you are new to this. If you have any question on how to use the application, please join the live sessions here today. This is just the recorded version as of today. At least the first and the last Monday of each month, this session will be live. So I will be sitting here and doing a live analysis with you at least 2 times a month. So this is where I'm anyhow committed to, and you can join the chat. So I will always try to look through the chat section in the YouTube live stream, and I will get back to your question at the end of each session. So this is the place to really please join me to discuss questions on how to use the analyzer and why there might be different ways how to apply cycle analysis to the chart. That's the reason why I'm here and want to build this community, because we can learn from each other, and even if someone has a question, someone else might also be a profit from this knowledge if I'm trying to get to these topics here. So in most cases, I try to be live anyhow each Monday on this channel. So I think I committed to this anyhow, but at least twice a week. So therefore, please excuse, today was just one day where I did the pre-recording, but it's then also outlined in the title of the YouTube video title. So you can see if it is live or if it is a special topic. So you will always see in advance if it's live or a recorded one. The most reason to be here is join the live sessions because we can discuss cycles. So then please tune in next week, Monday, same time, same place. Hopefully we can get to some basic chart analysis again. Up to then, I think we all need to be there to think about what can we do to stop war on this planet here. So see you next Monday, same time, same place. Stay safe. Bye.